to CBS Sports HQ, presented by Canva. Things are heating up in the race for the ACC title. It's shaping up right now to be a three-leg race. Hello, Clemson. Welcome back after a crazy start to the year. They are undefeated, along with all of the teams except Louisville you see here. But with the second half of the season getting ready to get underway this weekend, how will the ACC championship play out? For those questions, we go over to our betting analyst, Mackenzie Brooks, who's got all of the sports line numbers to break down who's playing in that championship game. Mackenzie, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes down to this game, Miami versus Louisville this weekend, and I'm going to draw out a likely situation we can be in here where Clemson ends up just finishing the season with one loss to UGA. Now, in order to do that, they get through this weekend. They have about an 85% chance to stay on that track of having one loss. Then you go to SMU. They currently have one loss to BYU, and they'd obviously like it to stay that way and win out. And there's around an 85% chance that after week 8 they are still on that path. Then you go to Miami here, okay? If they lose to Louisville here, which is pretty likely, we give them around a 45% chance to do that. Now we're in a situation where everyone has one loss. This loss is to Louisville, and that's where our ACC champ game becomes SMU-Clemson, because SMU has that head-to-head win over Miami, because they did go in and they did beat Louisville. Now, different situation we're talking about if Miami goes into Louisville, wins that game, say they stay undefeated here this season, okay? That is when they take SMU's spot over here, they get kicked out, and we see Miami is part of this ACC championship game. Now, as far as playoff implications, in that first situation when they're not making the ACC champ game, their playoff chances go to 18%. That is a wildly low number because they have 0 ranked teams on their schedule. Shout out Danny and Florida State for making that situation for them. But it's really hard to make the playoff when you're not in that ACC matchup game and you have no ranked teams on your schedule. Now, if they do make this ACC champ game, we give them a 70% chance to make the playoffs because we do like them to win that game and get one of those 4 bye-week spots. So massive, massive swing this week. If Miami loses to Louisville here, things look very, very bad for them. But if they win, obviously almost become a playoff lock here.
Mackenzie, thank you. She's going to walk over and join us at the desk. And while we wait on Mackenzie to come over, we bring in our Danny Kannel, college football analyst. I also wrote this down, Danny. You were the 1996 ACC Player of the Year.
I was. Thank you for dating me.
How about that?
I appreciate it. I was.
Right.
Long time ago.
That's still good,
yes,
though.
It was cool. I had some really good teammates around me.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about your conference.
Humble king.
I know, it was humble. Let's talk about the conference, though. Mackenzie just gave us all the numbers, all the breakdowns there. How do you see this race playing out?
I think it's going to boil down to Clemson and Miami, but I'm kind of on the same page as you as what a tough game this is for Miami. It's at noon, which is always a challenge, especially when you're the road team. It's against Louisville, who I think is better than their record says they are. They've lost both games were by 1 possession against pretty good teams that they lost to. So I wonder, Mackenzie, what you think of the possibility of 3 teams from the ACC getting in.
Ooh. So I don't think it's impossible. And you look at Miami, I gave them still an 18% chance to make the playoff instead of a 0. And that's because that 18% chance is, honestly, maybe not making that conference championship is good for them. They have 0 chance of being a 2-loss ACC team. If you don't go with that conference championship, you have secured yourself a 1-loss ACC team. And sometimes, you know, a 1-loss Miami could look better, if not just as good as a 2-loss SMU that could potentially lose in that ACC conference game.
I think so, too. And the one thing I do feel more confident in, out all these 3 teams, I feel better and better that Clemson is the best team in the ACC, because Miami was the odds favorite, the odds-on favorite to win the ACC. All of a sudden, it switched the flip-flop this week because Clemson has continued to look better and better and better since that second half against Clemson. And I think they're going to be a pretty significant favorite if they match up against Miami or SMU in the ACC title game.
Yeah, it just feels like that Georgia game that we all sat here and watched together as a family at the beginning of the week. Yeah. It's like we've forgotten about it to that point. All right, so that's the ACC. Let's talk about another conference here. We're going Big 12 college football playoff hopes. When you look at the Big 12 standings right now, they are so bizarre. BYU, Ohio State, Texas Tech, Arizona State, all in the top 4 here. Mackenzie, when you look at the college playoff football hopes for that conference in particular, looking at these 3 teams, these are the ones that we're expecting to go in. Danny, I know you like BYU. I'm going to give you a chance to talk about them in a minute, but of these 3, Mackenzie, what you got for us?
So it comes to a situation where Iowa State obviously sits with the healthiest chance because not only do they have a good chance to win the conference championship and get themselves to that Big 12 game, but they also could be an undefeated team through the regular season, lose that conference championship, and still have a slight chance just to make it as a at-large bid. So that's why they lead here. Kansas State, we just like them. We're high on them to win the Big 12 championship. That is their only ticket into this, so that's why we like them. BYU, I understand they're 6-0, better than Kansas here, but what they are doing feels so unsustainable. And Danny, I know you have a lot to say about them too, but it seems like odds makers are agreeing with us and any models are agreeing with us as well.
So I like BYU's resume to this point. I kind of agree with you on where they go from here.
Right.
I do think it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, but they are the only team in the top 25 that has 2 wins over currently ranked top 25 opponents in Kansas State and SMU. So I like their resume. I'm a believer in momentum. I'm sure the analytics would push back against that and belief in what they're doing behind Kalani Sitake. But even this weekend, with Oklahoma State coming in, which is not a very good football team, I'm like, are we sure BYU is, able to win this game against Oklahoma State? I think they will. This is not a huge number. I think it's right around 9. Some books even have it at 8. I would almost lean towards Oklahoma State to cover that one. So my confidence in BYU to win the Big 12 isn't great. I just think they should get the credit they deserve for what they've done to this point. Jake Retzlaff, the quarterback for them, has been an unbelievable story. Being a Jewish kid playing at a Mormon
BYU,
school.
yeah.
It's a great story. And he's actually, the story's great, but he's actually been playing really solid for him too. So I think it's unlikely, I would save your money. I like backing them because I like to give teams attention while they've accomplished what they have.
Sure.
As opposed, I can give them the credit for this. So I still think they should be ranked higher than an LSU or some of the teams that have 1 loss that are ahead of them.
Right. It's so funny. You talk about, they are good value right now because odds makers don't believe in them. And if Mormons could bet, this would be a great situation for them to be able to. But
you mean in Utah, right?
Utah.
Oh my gosh. All right. So that's BYU. They are 6-0 this season. We'll see if they get in. We'll have to revisit this conversation in a couple of weeks. Before I let you guys go, we got to talk about the biggest game on the schedule this week. You got Georgia taking on Texas in a top 5 matchup here. I've been waiting to say this for a long time, but I think Texas is back, guys. I'm feeling it. They're playing really well this year. Steve Sarkisian has them rolling here. But this is a challenging game taking on Georgia. Mackenzie, it seems like, though, a loss for Georgia is a lot more egregious than a loss for Texas. Do I have that right?
Yeah, because now we're starting to talk about seeding, and I understand that, our 12 teams and where they rank changes week to week, but consistently, week in and week out, we are finding that 5-6 seed has a better championship percentage than the 2 seed because it just is favorable matchups. You play the 12 seed or the 11 seed at home, so having a 90% chance to win round 1 and a 60% chance to win round 2 is still a better chance than having to be the 1 seed and go up against an 8-9, which likely could be an Oregon. It could be a Penn State. It could be an Alabama, given the way SEC is beating up on each other. We're going to see really quality teams take that 7 to 10 seed because we have to reserve that 3 and 4 seed for a Big 12 winner and possibly Boise State at this point. So it's like
Ashton Genty season.
Right. So these 3 and 4 seeds that are supposed to quote unquote be the 3rd and 4th best team in the playoff are really being potentially spoiled, and now we're seeing these awesome high caliber teams take lower seeds here.
So just to be clear, 'cause I know we had a little bit of this discussion this past weekend on the pregame show, it's still advantageous to have the first 4 seeds, to have the first round bye, right? Regardless of seeding. Oh, you kind of hedging on that?
There was a situation where we had Ohio State at 1. This was 3 weeks ago, I believe. They were going to play the winner of the Oregon-Georgia game, was where we sat at 8-9. I'd rather go play Indiana or Boise State at home and then play in the 2nd round and play probably the winner of the Big 12, Iowa State. That 5 seed could likely be, let's play Boise State, let's keep our momentum, and this is bearing injury.
Right.
And then we go when we play Iowa State. I'd rather have that path than the first game of my playoffs being a neutral site game versus an Alabama or a Georgia or an Oregon. And that's where you stand if you're the 1 or 2 seed.
I don't know. I think coaches would rather have the chance to get healthy. And I know there's some coaches that are Dan Lanning's been one of the most aggressive, analytical minds as far as approaching the season that way. I think it'd be an interesting conversation to have with him and see what he would think about it.
It's everyone's first time with this.
Right, exactly. No one knows. And the teams that will be ahead of the game are the ones that do look at this type of information and do take it into consideration. preparation. I still think coaches' old school mentalities get healthy, get guys a chance to come back, an extra week of preparation. So I think that'll come into play too.
It'll be funny. I don't think this will happen, but what if we see somebody, throw a game to not make the conference championship? Like
we just saw Dan Lanning put 12 men on the field to win a game.
You could look better not making your conference championship, but guaranteeing you are only a one-loss team and not even risking having 2 losses on your resume. I know people rather see a 1-loss Miami than a 2-loss SMU in this playoff.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because what is is there an advantage to not playing in the title game?
Right.
Because we've seen teams,
there's your rest. Then you don't need the bye week.
Exactly. So that's the one thing I'm worried about because I love the 12-team playoff. I think it's great for college football, but there are some dynamics that could come into play. Resting players, final week of the season potentially, which could affect another team who's trying to make it. Conference championship game, how much does that matter to you as we're talking about seeding? There are some dynamics that come into play that could get a little bit uncomfortable for everybody involved.
Yeah, I don't think they thought out this whole situation when they started making the 12-team playoff. I don't know if this was part of the pros here.
I don't know. It's going to be wild, and we're going to have to wait to see how it all plans out. But Mackenzie gave us a good breakdown there for all those. You can check out Mackenzie and Danny when Mackenzie hijacks the Cover 3 podcast on the Cover 3 pod. Scan that QR code on your screen to listen in.
What's that record again? Oh, we won't bring it up.
Talk about that.